Algeria announces a new government with 27 members. The new cabinet will be a caretaker government with Nourdine Bedoui remaining as prime minister. Turkey's 7th election in 5 years. The ruling party's candidate claims victory in a tight vote in Istanbul, while the opposition says it is them who've won the ballot. We'll be crossing to our correspondent on the ground, Jasper Mortimer. Also coming up this hour on France 24, a runoff for Ukraine's presidential race. Following this Sunday's election, an April the 21st vote will pit the incumbent leader Petro Poroshenko against comedian Volodymyr Zelensky, who previously played a fictional president on television. Hello, very warm welcome to France 24 with me, Sanam Chantier. We start with Algeria, where weekly rallies continue to gain momentum. Protesters inside the country are not only calling for the ailing President Abdelaziz Bouteflika to step down, but they also want a complete overhaul of the establishment. Now, on Sunday, the North African nation named a new government, headed by recently appointed Prime Minister Nourdine Bedoui. It was also divulged that Deputy Defence Minister and Chief of Staff Ahmed Gaid Salah is keeping his position. Here's our correspondent Monsef Ait Kasi with the latest from Algiers.
The majority is actually skeptical about the latest announcements and still want the system to move. These reactions are in social networks because nothing is happening in the streets for the moment. People are wondering why some ministers kept their positions. Meanwhile, the popular movement is still asking for the departure of the whole system, saying that because some members of the government are still in government. These 27 new members has been announced for this government to be held by Prime Minister Nourdine Bedoui, who finally maintains his position as Prime Minister of this new government. Despite his call for the dismissal of Bouteflika, Ahmed Gaid Salah retained his post of Deputy Minister of Defense, and Ramtan Lamamra leaves the executive, which was a big surprise. We can notice that Houda Iman Faraoun, Minister of Post and Technology of Information and Communication, who is very controversial because of internet cuts since the beginning of the popular movement, is kept among the new government.
Next to local elections in Turkey, where the candidate for the ruling AK party, that's Binali Yildirim, has claimed that he's won in Istanbul. This while the opposition says that they're the winners in the city. This election is said to be one of the most polarizing in Turkey's modern history. Let's listen to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan speaking earlier on Sunday.
Every victory and every loss is the will of our nation, and we have to accept this fact as a necessity of democracy. We will admit we won people's hearts in cities we won, but we were not successful enough in cities we lost. And we will act accordingly.
Let's now cross to our correspondent Jasper Mortimer, who's standing by in Ankara. Jasper, we have both the candidates of the ruling AK party and the opposition claiming victory in Istanbul. What's happening?
Oh, with 98.8% of the ballot boxes opened in Istanbul, the government's candidate, Binali Yildirim, a former prime minister, has 48.71%, and the opposition's candidate, Ekrem İmamoğlu, has 48.65%. In other words, there's a difference of 0.06%, and that amounts to 4,443 votes. Now, it's very significant that those results have held for the last 45 minutes. There has been no advance on that for the past 45 minutes. So that makes one think that something unusual is happening in the counting center. About 40 minutes ago, Yildirim told the press that he had won. But Ekrem İmamoğlu promptly rejected that claim and said that the former prime minister was trying to manipulate the results, and it was not right to declare victory before the counting process has been completed, and he appealed to the Supreme Election Council to intervene. Shortly afterwards, his party boss, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the main opposition Republican People's Party, gave a press conference. He also accused former Prime Minister Yildirim of trying to manipulate the results. And he told his party workers to maintain a vigil in the counting centers and, look after the ballots for the next 48 hours. He said they mustn't sleep, they must stay next to the ballots. We don't know what is going on here, but it does look extremely suspicious. I think one should also point out that when the last local elections were held in Istanbul, the AK Party candidate won by nearly 8%. It certainly wasn't 0.06%. So one can almost say that whoever wins tonight, the opposition has given the government a very close run for its money.
The opposition giving government a close run for its money. Jasper Mortimer, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Thank you for reporting for us and bringing us the latest from Ankara. Now to a decisive election in Ukraine. According to initial exit poll data, Volodymyr Zelensky, a comedian, has won most votes in the first round of the country's presidential polls. But the 30% is far short of the absolute majority needed to win. Most exit polls do say that the incumbent leader, that's Petro Poroshenko, received the second biggest support, which would put him and Zelensky in a runoff on April the 21st. Meanwhile, ex-Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, as seen here, has actually refused to admit defeat, saying exit polls have been bought. Let's now listen to the leader in those elections this Sunday, Zelensky, speaking earlier.
Thank you to all the Ukrainians who did not cast their votes as a joke. For me, people are more important than political activity and ambitions. People, Ukrainians, come before anything else, and they were waiting for us.
Now, earlier we spoke to our correspondent Gulliver Cragg, who's been following the day's developments for us from Kiev. I asked him what Volodymyr Zelensky said earlier on Sunday at the news conference, and I asked Gulliver to elaborate on the day's events.
He was asked one very interesting question, which was, what will be your first words to Vladimir Putin when you meet him? And at first he looked taken aback, not prepared to answer that question, and asked, what, am I already scheduled to meet Vladimir Putin? Trying to joke about it. And then he came up with, well, my first words to him will be, well done for giving us back the territories that you seized, Donbass and Crimea. Now let's talk about how you're going to compensate us for all the suffering that you've caused to the Ukrainian people. So a strong witticism there that I think some people will feel showed that he gave a good performance, but it's actually in contradiction with his official stance, which is that he is prepared to negotiate with Vladimir Putin before Russia hands back Crimea and pulls the forces that it's supporting out of the Donbass. Somewhat contradictory positions there from Volodymyr Zelensky, but at least he did prepare to engage with some serious matters. He also said that he would be prepared to debate with Petro Poroshenko. So far in this election campaign, he hasn't taken part in any debates or actually held any political rallies. A little bit more seriousness there from him, but as you can probably see behind me, the atmosphere in his campaign headquarters is still very much one of a party. There's house music playing, alcohol being served, people are playing ping pong and table football. Some people think this is all great, shows young people are coming to power in Ukraine. Other people think this is quite inappropriate for somebody who is trying to be president of a country that is at war and facing a very difficult economic situation.
Lastly, here in France, Emmanuel Macron has appointed 3 new government members, including the minister who will be in charge of handling Brexit-related issues. As part of the cabinet reshuffle, which comes just 2 months before the European elections, Amélie de Montchalin has been named the new European Affairs Minister, while Sibeth Nadier, previously Macron's communication advisor, has been appointed spokeswoman of the government. And lastly, Cédric O the new Junior Minister for Digital Affairs. Well, that's it for us for this hour. Do stay tuned. More news coming up very shortly.